Starting your own practice is hard for many chiropractors. It's riddled with both struggles and successes. But here at the Chiropractic Philanthropist, we make it easy by having chiropreneurs and entrepreneurs share their struggles and lessons learned in life and business so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. And now here's your host, Dr. Ed Osborne.
All right, TCB listeners, I have an incredible guest today, and that is actually Dr. Ben Tapper. Dr. Ben, how are you doing today?
Good, sir. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm excited about this. I actually, you know what, I say that about every episode, but I'm really excited about this one because I have no idea where we're going to go with this conversation. But I mean, unless you've been under a rock, most of us in our profession, you know, colleagues, chiropractors know who you are. But for those of us who don't know who you are, why don't you introduce yourself? Just give us a little bit of a background about yourself, and we'll go from there.
Well, my name is Ben Tapper. I come from a family of chiropractors. My dad practiced for 43 years, and then he sold his practice a couple of years ago. My sister's a chiropractor, and her husband's a chiropractor. So, make a long story short, our family functions are real fun. You can guess what we talk about most of the time. From good old Sioux City, Iowa. So the Sioux Cityans out there are from Iowegians. We got to represent here. But I went to Davenport, Iowa, Quad Cities, and I graduated in 2012. But, you know, I've been very into the wellness paradigm, which most chiros are. And I think we are doctors of wellness and doctors of cause. But I've been very much heavily involved in the vaccine narrative. And I was very much so before even chiropractic school. And my dad passed that on to me at an early age. And we talked about, you know, vaccines, and my dad studied vaccinations before I. But, you know, I follow the narrative very closely. I campaigned for Ron Paul in 2012. And when it was 2011, I'm sorry. And so I worked his campaign trail and voluntarily. But I learned a lot about just the politics and the corruption that with the politics and how much control the establishment has on both parties. Mm-hmm. And so ever since then, I've been heavily involved on the political side of things with legislation, and I've been very vocal in the vaccine realm. And if you've been paying attention to the news in the past year, they labeled me as one of the 12 disinformation dozen. Some people say it's a badge of honor, and like the president, some people think I'm killing people. And so I don't know what side you're on the fence here. We have to understand that this doesn't matter if you're pro or anti anything. This involves all of us, and our freedoms are at stake here. So that's the 2 cents about me. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so if we back up even 2 years, you know, when all this shit show, sorry, I swear sometimes on these.
That's all right.
When this started, so this is not like you just decided, okay, well, this is, you know, something I'm going to draw a line in the sand about. You've been doing, like, you've already made a stand for years. So, but it was only like the last couple of years, maybe even the last 12 months that I even heard about you. So what was the shift there? Like, what happened? It seemed almost instantaneous, where all of a sudden you had this notoriety, like this dubious honor, right, that came to you.
Well, if we back up, I started I'm the admin of the Nebraskans for Medical Freedom group, and I have been for the last 5 years. Yeah, because we saw this legislation coming. It didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out crony baloney was coming our way. I mean, that's why I said this is a Trojan horse to implement the draconian legislation that's coming our way. Just look at the bills that were implemented in the past 5 years about vaccine freedoms and medical freedoms. It was coming our way. They were telling you what they were going to do and planning on doing. It was right there. Really, if you just read the legislation, the bills, they're right there. Look at SB 77, SB 276 in California. I mean, the HR bill, 6666, all these different things that are coming after the freedoms to refuse a pharmaceutical product. But anyway, so I held a seminar in 2019, in fall of 2019, November. I held it down at the hotel, the convention center down the road. And I said, I stood up and I said, all of our freedoms are at stake here. And I said, we have 5 freedoms in the First Amendment, and they're going to be infringed upon here very shortly. Mm-hmm. I said, basically, we have the freedom to petition our government, the freedom of press, the freedom of religion, the freedom to form an assembly, and the freedom of speech. They're all hindered. And if you look early last year, you couldn't even gather at church. You couldn't gather in groups of more than 6 or 10. Obviously, we don't have freedom of press. The press is bought and paid for to push a narrative. All those freedoms were mostly taken away temporarily. But, and even if you back up in 2019, the World Health Organization stated that the greatest threat are those who refuse or question vaccinations. And then the ACIP, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, stated that they can't force compliance, or they can't force vaccinate, but they can force compliance. Mm-hmm. And now we're seeing that. You've seen all these companies and the schools and the businesses leveraging and threatening termination unless you have the vaccine. And I've been saying that pretty soon you're going to have the vaccine to have your ticket to function in society. And that's their goal. Their end goal, make no mistake. They're going to realize that people are going to buck the system and protest and say, you know what, we're going to work around it. We're not going to get this vaccine. But so what's the one thing that will make the people bow? And I believe we're heading into a forced, almost a currency. They're going to leverage currency or the banking system to get the vaccine. And, and they're taking out conservative voices or people that are counter narrative to this whole issue. They took out, like our PayPal or Venmo just yesterday. And so It's evil.
Yep. So what's the purpose though? Like, I mean, is it just dollars and cents? Is that the reason, or is it depopulation? Like, what's the underlying purpose behind getting everyone, a jab?
So people say, the science is settled. Well, science is never settled. It's always observational. We have to look at observational science, look through the lenses of observation, see what's coming. I don't like to be a conspiracy guy and be like, depopulation, but yeah, it sure sounds like it. And you hear Bill Gates talk about that stuff. And, I do believe there's an agenda. I mean, you look at the Georgia Guidestones and all that stuff, and you look at all this stuff and you hear Bill Gates talk about how he can, through vaccinations, we can depopulate the planet, right? And saying that stuff. But what I do know and what I've been doing a deep dive is I'm really investigating Klaus Schwab and Fourth Industrial Revolution, the Great Reset. And if you go to World Economic Forum, go to their programs and look at COVID-19 and the giant eyeball that has all these different pathways and it tells you everything, all the breakdown. And I'm like, do you really think that was just planned in the last year?
Yeah.
This has been a very well thought out, planned out agenda being pushed on the people. Look at the UN agenda. Just go to the UN, work on agendas and read about it. I mean, it might have been like conspiracy. The Agenda 21 conspiracy, but I'm like, it's right on the UN agendas. It's there, and they're planning it out. And they got people scared about Corona, and it's like all smoke and mirrors. And it's a deception tool. It's a false flag to implement all of this legislation and this new wave of government. And, and really, if you want to look at it, America's at war. Yeah. And because our freedoms are at stake here, not just the vaccine freedoms.
Yeah.
But if you look at Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, I mean, he's stated that, the people won't own anything. The government won't own everything. And you basically rent everything from the government. And that's all coming our way with these UN agendas. And to me, that's the end goal. It's all control. And it's evil. They want to control every aspect of your life, and that includes your body.
Yeah. Well, I mean, haven't they kind of even removed, the civil, I guess it's actually your right in the States, or how you would want to word this, but people who own rental properties no longer can evict their tenants for non-payment. So, I mean, they're taking away the actual right to own private property, it seems to me. I'm Canadian, so I just every day try to wrap my head around what the heck is going on down there, because we have our own individual, specific challenges up here. But it's almost like watching 9/11 again down there. Watching. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's all coming our way, and I don't want to be a doom and gloom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And from the chiropractic standpoint, I've been telling chiros, this is our time to shine. This is our time to take the reins of this whole corona baloney madness and teach people what it means to be healthy. The great Fred Barge said, fear is the fire that fuels the furnace of disease. And we need to understand that, put our thinking caps on. What is a fear mongering, a fearful body? What does that look like? I mean, can you think logically? They're stuck in a sympathetic overload state. And so if a bear jumps out at you, can you do simple math? No, you're just thinking about surviving. If I were to said, Ed, hey, bear jumps out at you, I'm like, what's 10 times 10? You're going to look at me like I'm crazy and be like, Bear, it's not even going to register in your mind. These people are in that fearful state. They're in that sympathetic overload state. And it's like they can't think logically. They can't see this coming. And that's why I say it's spiritual and psychological warfare. And they're not thinking logically here. And, and the people say, well, don't you believe in Corona? And I said, well, I think people are getting sick, but they've always been getting sick. It's like nothing new. But the testing is so faulty, and it's built, all this whole thing is built on a house of cards. And we need to teach these people what it means to be healthy. And chiropractors they know more than I would say. I mean, we are the doctors of the future, and we need to understand that. And these opportunities right now. We need to see the opportunities to because the government and the CDC, and I think, they're making the soil for the chiropractic message to sprout. And we need to see that this is our time to plant the seeds and bring in that harvest, because people are starving for it right now. Yeah. And that's why, yes, well, how did you get this notoriety? All I did was speak out. That's all I did, to tell the truth. And I wasn't afraid to do so. And my convictions were greater than my complacency. That's all it was. I spoke on the city council last August, and nobody knew who I was. And I would joke with my wife and said, hey, I got 4 shares on Facebook. Hey, it's going viral, and she's like, she would laugh and say, that's not viral. Well, I uploaded that video in August, and it had 3 million views in 24 hours. Insane. It looked like my Facebook was a slot machine on my notifications. It was just going crazy. Wow. But my point being, I'm not saying that to brag. All I'm saying is that, I'm still bhtapper@yahoo.com. The thing is, people are starving for what we have to offer. And like BJ said, you just never know how far reaching something you may think Sarah do today will affect the lives of millions tomorrow. And, BJ, I firmly believe this. If you study the history of chiropractic, look at the history, look at BJ's writings. Dude, my mind has been so blown the past year and a half. This article on my wall right here is the article, "A Few Fearful Physicians for His Funny Few Flew Frivolous for a Few Frenzied Folks." And that was an article written by BJ Palmer. Read it. Search that on Google. You can find the article, and I can possibly send it to you, Ed. But it's basically talked about the Spanish flu and how much propaganda and fear-mongering. And it basically gave the voice for BJ and chiropractic to skyrocket, because BJ spoke out against it. It was the same song and dance 100 years ago. BJ was talking about the mask and how much he's like, direct quote says, does a hog fence stop mosquitoes? He said, we can't even see the flu on this microscope. And then he said that the statement from the AMA stated that, the influenza is experimental. And it's like the statement from the AMA said that there's been no controlled trials adequately demonstrating a decrease in influenza after vaccination. So why on earth would you want to be experimented on? That was a direct quote from the AMA. And I got a Fluval package insert on the disclaimer of the package insert. It says the exact same thing 100 years later. And it's absolutely mind-boggling. But anyway, the history. It's fear, though. Research. It's all fear. It's all fear-mongering, 100%.
Yeah, well, it's fear. There's 2 levels of it I've seen or observed. One is fear, because look, I've been there even. And I feel sometimes like it's really questioned my principles and values. And then there's the other piece of just the education piece. Like, people don't know; they just believe what they're told. So there's almost like this mass psychosis, right? That we've been this half have been programmed, right? So I kind of see it as 3 different levels. I was just kind of making a note here. There's those vehemently, everyone needs a vaccination group. There's the group of people who have been vaccinated. Maybe they have some regret, or they're indecisive still. They're on the science, right? And then there's the anti-vaxxers or the indecisive completely, those 3. And I feel like, as health professionals, as chiropractors, this is our moment to shine. We can speak to these people who are like they're open and ready, and they need something, a solution.
Right. And and here's all we do, Chiros. Keep it simple. Simplify means to remove the unnecessary. I mean, I've had people talk to me like, oh, you're not talking about the nervous system enough in your platforms and all that stuff. And I'm like, I'll say that for my office when they come into me. But right now, what they need is a message of hope. Yeah. Hope is a powerful drug. Hope will bring the people in my office. Then I can talk about the nervous system and how the nervous system controls every cell, tissue, organ in the body. And when we adjust the spine and, in our role as the chiropractor, but really I bring a message of hope to the people, and that's what people need. And chiropractors, we understand that. We teach that people that your body's self-healing, self-regulating, and if you give the body what it needs, it can be well. And that's and that's what people need to hear right now. Yeah. We need to understand that the opportunity for a chiropractic message is the soil is rich, and
totally.
You just got to get out there and people will listen to you. I guarantee you, if you just put out there, hey, learn about Corona, like put a flyer out there and like, what can you do to prevent, help, not say you're curing Corona, because that's, you get in trouble for saying stuff like that, but really just saying that, talk about the Corona baloney and people will come in your door because they're wanting to hear that. And it's, we rented out a wedding venue, about a half hour from my office, and I posted. All I did was put one post on Facebook. I said, hey, we're going to talk all things that are not allowed on Facebook. That's all I did. And I said, we're going to go to this wedding venue. Email me if you want to come. And it was nuts. I had only 275 seats available at the wedding venue in the barn. And within 3 hours, I had over 500 messages saying, hey, I want to go. And I couldn't even sleep the night before. I said, and I actually deleted the post after 4 hours. I said, I called the guy at the venue, and he's a good old boy. He's a farmer that just rents out his barn. It's a beautiful barn. And I said, dude, I overbooked your venue. I go, how many people? I said, how many people can you hold? He goes, well, how many got coming? I said, I don't know. I think we had 500 that messaged me, but I'm like, I don't know. And so we filled that barn plumb full of people in their standing room, and he gave extra benches. And my point being is, I can't say this enough. I'm a broken record. People need to hear what we have to offer. You get out there, speak the truth, and stand your ground, and you let your convictions come through. And don't be afraid to speak out. You're going to face persecution. I've had, oh my gosh, I can write a book on the persecution. And I'm a spiritual guy, I believe in the Bible, and I have a relationship with the Lord. And I believe in 1 Peter 4, when they talk about when you start, going out and speaking truth, you'll be persecuted, but consider it a great joy because you're partnering with the Lord. And I've gained a lot of persecution. I've had someone. I had someone drill a hole in my gas tank in my truck. I had someone break into my home when I was in Hawaii. I had hate mail. I had someone leave me negative reviews all the time. I just got one yesterday, and I had someone say I smell like a stinky cucumber. It's like all these things. I'm like, and not one of those people were in my office.
Yeah.
But you know what? We've had so many positives, like all the negative reviews, negative comments, and all the hate. I'm like, how how many thousands and thousands of people and positives we have? So, we can't let the negative few ruin the positive many. Think about all the persecution BJ had and all the chiros that were in jail for speaking the truth and fighting for this profession. And in chiros, we need to, I just pray you listen to this warning, because you need to understand that D.D. Palmer and BJ spoke out against the vaccines. And if you don't believe me, I'll send you the green books that he talked about the vaccines. And this is a topic because they understood that they're trying to force vaccine into our model. Yeah. The chiropractors are the doctors, the pinnacle of the wellness and prevention model and the paradigm. And we need to understand that when they say you're just a doctor of chiropractic, these fact checkers try to come at me and say, you're just a chiropractor. And if you read the Wikipedia thing about me, this says I'm a chiropractor. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm like, no SHIT. I'm not a medical doctor. And I'm like, I'm a doctor of chiropractic. And they're like, you don't have any business speaking on the matter. I said, I have absolutely everything. I have weight here because I'm defending my post. We're defending our post because they're shoving a pharmaceutical product into a wellness and prevention paradigm, and it doesn't fit. It will never fit into a wellness and prevention paradigm. And we need to understand that and protect this and fight this with everything we have. So,
the interesting thing here too is that there was chiropractors. I don't know if you know this. There was chiropractors here in Canada were actually administering the vaccine to help with the burden. So, but that's a statement more than a question.
Makes my blood boil, dude. Makes my blood boil. Oh, I don't even gosh.
Well, I mean, we are not even allowed to talk. Like, we can't even talk about vaccination. So I've had these discussions on this podcast before, and I end up, even from people who are non-listeners, they'll see a title or something and I'll get bad reviews on my podcast, but whatever. And my question is, are you concerned? Like, I mean, with this, so we have this one group, this one population, who is unvaccinated, largely unvaccinated. And now they're really pushing to vaccinate these children. We don't know what's going to happen when they do. Plus they're almost completely at zero risk.
Right.
So is this something that you're concerned about, or is this something that's a big push also in when you're speaking?
Oh, their ultimate goal is to get the children.
Why though? I don't really understand well, maybe it's just me. Why would they want to do that to the next generation?
Good question. I mean, that's something. Their goal is to have the vaccine on the children's schedule, and and to win back your freedoms in society by getting the vaccine. But you're going to see more propaganda with the children, like, oh, children are dying and all this other. It's more fear mongering and propaganda. I mean, what is your greatest fear as a parent? Oh, something happens to your kids, right? Yeah. So they're really pushing that fear button, and it's going to cause a lot of stir. And it's using problem, reaction, solution. And they're creating this problem, getting people to react. And then the solution is get them vaccinated. And that's what they're funneling these people into this fear trap to get our children vaccinated. And, I do see a major concern. This is an experimental vaccine. It's an experimental jab. And it's got technology in this vaccine that's never been used before.
Right.
It's got CRISPR-Cas9 technology. And it's I should say mRNA. That's what most people know it as, mRNA technology, but it's really CRISPR-Cas9 technology. And if you do a deep dive with DARPA and what it really means of the CRISPR-Cas9, dude, not a single, how do you say it? If you have two brain cells, you wouldn't even do it. Common sense is not so common nowadays, but if you really looked into what CRISPR-Cas9 is from DARPA, you'd absolutely run from this thing. That's how scary this technology is in this vaccine, but it's safe and effective. Trust the government. We have a founding father here, Thomas Jefferson, that stated that if the people let the government decide what foods they eat, what medicines they take, their bodies will soon be in sorry state as those souls who live in our tyranny. We can't trust the government to give us knowledgeable feedback, especially when it's been hijacked by big pharma. I mean, pharmaceutical industries, they're the leading industry in the world, and they outnumber oil and tobacco lobbyists 3-1. And they've hijacked our government. They perverted healthcare. They monopolized sickness. And now they're trying to come after the wellness and prevention paradigm. And they have been for over 100 years. That's why chiropractors have been a thorn in their side. And I believe that this whole profession is a divine profession to be that thorn in that side, to keep them in check, And so what the Constitution does for the government is what chiropractors should be doing for healthcare. We need to be holding the allopathic world in their position to keep them in their scope of practice and stand our ground with confidence and certainty. And we are doctors of the future, and we need to understand that and protect this with with everything we have. Because if we don't, guess what? They're going to force you to get the vaccine, to even practice, to have a license to.
Oh, it's coming.
It's coming. And so we need to wake up, first of all. But yes, concern with the children. That was your original question. It's absolutely terrifying to me. I mean, these kids, the stats are out there. These kids aren't dying from corona. No. They're dying from suicide, car accidents, cancer. I mean, 1 in 3 kids right now are obese. 1 in 6 has a neurological developmental disorder, delay, or learning disability. 1 in 9 has ADHD. 1 in 11 has asthma. 1 in 12 has a food allergy. Now 1 in 36 has autism. Over 50% of our children have chronic disease associated with poor lifestyle choices. That's the real epidemic on our children, not corona baloney. The stats aren't there. Your kids have a greater chance of dying on the way to school than from corona. Not only that, you tell them to stay 6 feet apart, fear their neighbor, put a mask on. They need expression. They need to see facial expressions and let them know, hey, you're loved. We love you. It's okay. But if they can only see this all day long, am I smiling at you? Am I sticking my tongue at you? What am I doing? Am I frowning at you? They can't see that. So socializing. I mean, I homeschool. So I pray this massive explosion of homeschoolers arrive and like, hey, we're just going to pull our kids from the public schools. Yeah. And, people are like, well, your kids aren't socialized. I'm like, oh, they're going to get socialized in public school. I'm like, this is terrible. It's, they're 6 feet apart. I went into these schools. I've been going to these schools and they're like, they have plexiglass on the desk and 6 feet apart. And it's like, wash your hands, wear a mask. I'm like, Aren't you teaching these kids how to think well, move well, eat well, relate well, and they can be well instead of just fear-mongering tactics? I mean, like, this is going to increase suicide. And if you look at suicide rates, it's through the roof.
Yeah.
Through the roof.
Yeah.
I mean, it's terrible. I've had 4 friends commit suicide in the last year and a half.
Oh my God.
I've had 2 close friends. One was a colleague of mine from my hometown. Went to chiropractic school with him. Another friend I mentored for 6 years. He was a 20-year-old kid. And, you know, and that was very hard. It was 2 suicides in 2 weeks, and 2 close friends. And it just reassures me, like, I've yet to meet anybody who died from corona or know anybody that's died from corona, but I have 4 friends that has committed suicide. And I've been saying that, you know, suicide rates have been higher than little did I know I was going to have 4 friends commit suicide. And it's heartbreaking. It really is heartbreaking.
So do you see that, you know, like they talk about a 4th wave? Do you see this is going to happen in the future? Like soon?
Like a 4th wave of corona baloney?
Yeah. Well, that's what they're saying up here. They're saying 4th wave. They're saying get prepared. You know, so for another lockdown, series of lockdowns. But
dude, I think they're going to keep pushing it. Keep pushing it till they get their way.
Yeah.
Their agenda. This ends when we stop complying. Stops conforming. Being courageous, the opposite of courageous isn't being a coward. It's conforming. I mean, the government doesn't have any power if we make a stand. Mm-hmm. I mean, who was it? Oh my gosh. Was it Thomas Jefferson that stated this, or maybe Benjamin Franklin? I think it's Benjamin Franklin that said this. So if the people fear the government, there's tyranny. Mm. But if the government fears their people, there's liberty. And sometimes we need to put the government in check and say, listen, you work for us. You're on our dollar, and you are providing the service to us.
Yeah.
And we are the government, not you, the people. We, the people. And people nowadays, you see this thing now, like, oh, you're a terrorist if you're a patriotic, if you start saying things like that. Well, you know, and Homeland Security put out a statement that said, these people are the bioterrorists of our day, that, you know, the people that challenge Corona narrative, and the people that are patriotic, the people that are yada, yada, you know, I'm like, all those characteristics, that's like me. And that's coming our way. And it's like, you know, by their definition, the founding fathers would be bioterrorist.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah. So I mean, like, what would you say to like a doc who's listening right now? And there's going to be a lot of doctors who are listening, or chiros that are listening to this right now. And I get it. I mean, a lot of them, they're going to be, they're thinking, wait a second, if I take a stand, if I say this, or if I, you know, oppose the agenda or the narrative, then they're going to shut down my social media, shut down my websites, take away my PayPal. I'm going to get a letter from the board and get, you know, pulled up in front of the board, or maybe have my license questioned, or a fine, or God knows what else is going to happen. Right. So what would you say to a doc who's sitting there going, look, I have a lot to lose, but, you know, we all know as a profession, we're probably going to lose the profession if we don't take a stand. What would you say to that doc?
Well, it's a good question. My advice to you, I would look in this matter, and I would do a deep dive in what I'm saying. And once you know what I know, then your convictions will spill over to action. And then your convictions will be greater than your complacency. And you'll be willing to sacrifice your practice, your revenue, your livelihood. I mean, I have 4 children. You think it's easy to speak out?
Yeah.
I'd rather just have a mask on and keep my mouth shut. And taking the easy road is what makes men and rivers crooked. And we need good men to stand, leaders to stand. And you're going to face persecution. Absolutely. Expect it. But read 1 Peter 4. And that's your encouragement. That's my encouragement. And not be afraid to speak out. The truth's on our side. We're on the right side of history here, just like this whole Spanish flu. You know, look into that. I'll send you the link, the article that he wrote. But I'm going to tell you something. When Crony Baloney hit, I had a huge dip in patients. And I was very vocal. I started speaking out. I lost a ton of patients. Boy, were patients mad at me. I've had so many people say, man, I've been in patient yours for 9 years, and I can't believe you abandoned science and all this stuff. And I had, and I'm going to tell you, I've I'm not saying this to brag. I'm just telling you because the message that we have is very needed right now. I had record-breaking months.
Yeah.
I'm so busy right now. I've been turning patients away. And we had, I think, 60 patients in March, 60 new patients. That's unheard of. I'm not even marketing or advertising. I'm like, I don't even know how to handle this. And it's just like the support has come in. Yeah. And it's like, I mean, I don't even recognize all these people. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're seeing so many people that it's like, I'm almost like forgetting their names. And I'm like, I have to look and like, oh, hi. And it's like, yes. And it's just, so what I'm saying is God will bless you for making a stand. And, you know, the people will support you and you will get your tribe of people. I'm enjoying practice now, I think more than ever before. These people are like family and, you know, they come in and support me. And I've had people come in and say, gosh, Dr. Tapper, you know, this was, I think, late last year, but they would come in and say, I love coming to your office. It's so peaceful. You know, when everyone's during the mask mandate, I was like, I'm not wearing a mask. And I'm like, I'm not going to comply to this nonsense. And I just, you know, we would play Christian music and we would I put my hands on people and I would, you know, and there would be, you know, some ladies come in here with mask on and they would take it off and some were crying. Like, I just can't believe like you're not afraid of this. And, you know, and I would just give them a message of hope and I would plant some seeds with them. And I can't tell you how many people were like, I'm so thankful for you and what you're doing and making the stand. And I don't live in fear anymore. And I'm like, amen. I'm like, you know, that's the thing. I see, you know, a lot of people a week and I don't wear a mask. I have yet to put on a mask. I violate their 6-foot rule every chiropractor that's still in practice has to violate one of those regulations because you can't, I mean, so you can violate one, but not the other. And it's like, you know, and so I violated them all and I didn't wear a mask and I have yet to get sick. And I asked a question like, how many people do I have to see and how many people do I have to put my hands on before the whole contagion claim becomes mathematically impossible? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, those people that are coming in, the ones that are like your tribe, the people like, you know, that may be the only time in their day or their week that they actually see someone without a mask or they actually, you know, have physical contact, like someone actually, you know, connects with them, right? Like I know it's on the table, but I mean, it's, you know, the adjustment is a connection, right? I mean, and other people, like they'll never have that. Like some of them that, especially people, I feel really horrible for people who, you know, have been in isolation. And when I say isolation, I mean, they're alone all the time. So yeah, I could totally see how, you know, what we do as chiros, what do we do as chiropractors is so important right now for people. Like they're literally thirsty for it, man. So what would you say? Well, why don't we do this? Why don't you tell us like a little bit about the movie that you're part of?
So we got a documentary called The Time Is Now, and it should be released here hopefully in the next month or the next 2 months.
Cool.
But you know, the story's unfolding as we go. So it's like, oh, we can keep adding this to it. So it's kind of like, you know, it's just, there's so much material that just keeps adding to it. And so the documentary is called The Time Is Now. And we have phenomenal doctors and physicians and chiropractors. And we have, basically, we're going to tell the story. We're going to talk about leading up to Corona. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about, you know, when Corona hit and then this doom and gloom and all the censorship and the corruption and all this narrative. And we have people that have had, we got a lot of nurses that had vaccine injuries and they're going to share their story. And so we have that side of things. We're going to expose the corruption with the vaccine and then what's to come. And then what are we going to do about it? So there is some inspiration at the end of the film and like, how do we end this and how do we make this change? And so it's not going to be doom and gloom. I feel like there's a lot of doom and gloom right now and we don't want to add to that. I mean, we're going to talk about it, but also the way out of this, the solution to this and not live in fear because, you know, the allopathic world and the big pharma and the healthcare system, I mean, look how broken this is that they're putting all their faith in the vaccine. I mean, how silly is that? And if you understand, like, I mean, doctors of chiropractic, we understand what it means to be healthy. All these physicians out there, you know, other administrative doctors have studied what it means to be sick, but you know, doctors of chiropractic studied what it means to be healthy. And that's what we need to preach what we know the best, what we know well. I mean, you know, and so the documentary is going to do that. We're going to talk about what it means to be healthy and not live in fear and just living life to the fullest and your full potential. Because, you know, as you know, these masks have nothing to do with the promotion of health, and 6 feet apart has nothing to do with socializing, you know, and washing your hands. That's the key to health. I mean, I had, you know, people come in and like, look at my hands, like almost bloody, washing your hands. I'm like, gee, many crickets, lady. And it's like, you know, it's just crazy, you know, and talk about the germ theory. It's a theory. It's not really, you know, there's some truth to it, but it's not 100% true. It doesn't tell the full story. And, you know, and like, you know, Fred Barr said, it's like blaming the rats for the dump. You know, we can't, you know, just base everything off of factual with the germ theory. So anyway, it's going to be a fun film. Hopefully it's entertaining, and we'll be filming all day at my house on Friday. So I got to look nice and clean shaved, I guess not clean shaved, but just, you know, clean up a little bit, and the documentary. So if you're a doctor of chiropractic, I'd love for you to support us any way you can. Share the film, keep your eye out for The Time Is Now. The website will be thetimeisnow.movie. So the website, it might be up now. I haven't checked it, but it'll be up here really soon.
Just making a note here. Yeah. So, I mean, if there's anyone who's listening or any of our listeners who want to help support you, you know, the time. So it's thetimeisnow.movie is where they can head to get more information. Is there a way that we, you know, are you taking donations? Is there any way that we can financially support your cause?
Oh man. Well, that would be amazing. We need $75,000 to get this film up and running, 75 G's. So we have, basically, we just hit 51,000 raised. So we're almost there, but we need, you know, 75 to make it work. I would tell you my Venmo and my PayPal, but they just deleted and locked our accounts. Even though I had roughly 6,000 total in those accounts, they just locked the accounts, and I don't even know if I can get the money out. PayPal, I think, is a lost cause, and Venmo, I might be finding a loophole there, but it's corrupt. This is the world we live in. If you counter narrative, they take you down. It's like the CCP credit, your social credit score. Anyway, I digress. But anyway, the donations, you can send it to my office in Omaha, Nebraska. Just, you know, you can make the check out to me if you want. You can, and just put documentary in the memo. And I'm trying to keep the film crew anonymous. They asked to be anonymous and everything.
Okay.
But I would give you their direct name, but and they're awesome people. These people that are helping with the film, they have a very successful film on Amazon Prime right now, and they're this film is going to be huge, and we're not doing this for prosperity. We're doing this again. Like, I have no time for this. I have no time to be dedicating to this, and I shouldn't be doing this right now. Again, I'm doing this because I know that the truth's on our side. And, you know, again, my convictions are great. My convictions are what's leading me to do something like this. And I pray that if you're listening, I just pray that maybe you were inspired a little bit to make a stand, and I pray that it blesses you in some way, because, like I said, the time is now. Yep. We have to do something.
Yeah, it's a horrible thing to think that there's an upside to this, but I do believe that there will be a massive shift in consciousness right now. People are really questioning a lot of what's been presented to them, and there's a lot of mistrust in a lot of the upper echelon of our, you know, society and government. So I think there will be an upside. Unfortunately, it had to come to this. So can you give us like one or two resources? So maybe there's a doc who heard this now, and they're going, okay, you know what? I'm totally questioning everything. Where would you send them to go? One or two just positive resources for them to go check out.
Well, that's a great question. Unfortunately, there's so many that have been taken down in the last year. Unfortunately, and it's crazy. I mean, so, you know, but if you're seeking truth, you'll find it. And you can follow me on Instagram. Just write the word, type out Dr.Lionheart. I post a lot of stuff on there. You can find me on Telegram. I think it's just Dr. Tapper, or just do some searches on there. You should find it. But Telegram is a good source for good information. Find some good people there. Follow Sherry Tempany. Follow the Disinformation Dozen.
Yeah.
Follow all of us there. I feel like we're the truth tellers. You know what I mean? Follow the 12 that are on that stinking list. I like to follow a variety of people and kind of use discernment and wisdom. I like to follow Ben Swan. I listen to the Liberty Report for Ron Paul. I like his son Rand. I listen to that a lot. I listen to, I think it's, I'm drawing a blank. The Freedom Network, I think it's called the Freedom Network. I listen to a lot of that stuff. A lot of the podcasts I listen to are, the Health Freedom for Humanity podcast. That's a good one. I listen to Thomas Cowan, Andrew Kaufman. I love Sherry Tenpenny.
Yeah.
All those are good resources. Go to her website too, Vaxter. That's a good website to go to. She's got a lot of good information on there. Also go to nvic.org. nvic.org is a good resource for just vaccines in general, looking at the state laws and exemptions that you have. That's a good one. Also watch Andrew Wakefield's film. I think he put out a film that's 1980, not Vaxxed. That's a good one too, but 1986, The Act. That was put out last year. And honestly, it's one of those films I feel like the history nerds and the resource nerds and the people that like the logic and things and say, well, where's the science and where's the logic behind your stance? I feel like Andrew Wakefield just got so mad and figure out every single point that he could come up with on the vaccine side and put it into the documentary. So 1986, The Act is a really good documentary to watch. And one of my favorite documentaries I just took down was the realimmunity.org. And that was a phenomenal video documentary for chiropractors to tell their patients where to go, because it wasn't so conspiracy sounding. It was very much professional, well done. Something like you would present it in a clinic. And I thought that was very well done. Realimmunity.org. So keep your eye out for that one. That's a very phenomenal documentary. And also look at the UN agenda. Go to World Economic Forum. This is where the things are going to be the interesting side of things. Look at their agenda. Go to the World Economic Forum website and click on programs and click on the COVID-19. I think it's the model they have there. And you can start clicking around and reading about things and really see what's coming our way. I recommend getting the book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution by Klaus Schwab, and just really research his stuff. Because that's what we need to do as researchers, look at both sides and use discernment and just get an idea of what it means on both sides. And you'll get kind of an idea of what's coming our way.
I'm going to throw one in there too, which is Rumble. And are you represented on Rumble yet? I need to be. I'm still on that Facebook and Instagram and these I don't know why they treat me so poorly and they censor me and put me in jail all the time. And so I need to get on Rumble. I just, I got a MeWe account and I don't know how many followers I got on there, but I got a Telegram, and I got on Parler when a Parler hit and I blew up to 25,000 followers, and then boom, it was deleted and I have 0 followers now. So I'm like, oh, screw you, Parler. I'm done on that one. So, from my, Rumble was started by a Canadian as far as I know. And he basically just says, hey, I'm not qualified to make, medical decisions, so people can post whatever they want in there. So at least for now, it seems to be that's the place for video posting or video content. So I've gone on there a couple times and found some really good content. And so I'm going to throw that one in there too. I want to thank you so much for being on the Chiropractic Philanthropist today. This has been a great conversation. Certainly a spicy one. I'm sure it's going to have some people who are on both sides of the line when it comes to listening to this. But here's the thing is we have a saying in this podcast, or I've always had a saying over the last 6-7 years, which is that we're all more alike than we are different as chiropractors. We all became chiropractors. We got into this profession for a reason. And I believe, if we could stand in some sort of solidarity, this is a real time for us as a profession to shine, really become, again, less marginalized and more mainstream. So, yeah.
Amen.
Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Well, thanks for having me. It was great talking with you, Ed.
Thank you.
So you've heard the struggles, you've heard the successes, and this episode is done. But there's still so much more to come and so much more to learn. Head on over to thechiropracticphilanthropist.com and sign up for our newsletter, where you'll receive free practice building tips and strategies, including how to market your practice with your very own podcast and so much more. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on The Chiropractic Philanthropist.